So you want your website to come up at the tippy top of Google every time someone puts in your magic keyword phrases. And I don't blame you. Who wouldn't want to be found exactly when people are in the right frame of mind and actually searching and ready to buy? But there are two things you got to get right if you want to get to the top of the search results. And the first is relatively easy because you control it 100%, and that's getting your content on your website properly SEO optimized. The second part, possibly even more important and certainly tougher, and that's getting other websites to link to yours. So these links, aka backlinks, are a powerful signal to Google that your website has some clout. Nobody links to you. They figure this business is small potatoes. Nobody's talking about them or linking to them, right? Links are votes. And just like when you ran for prom king, you want the most. But the problem is they can be hard to get. And what used to work really doesn't work anymore. But hope isn't lost. There's still some really smart ways you can go about this. And I'm going to show you my 7 absolute favorite ways of building those powerful backlinks from really reputable websites that are going to make you look like, the best choice in the eyes of the almighty Google machine. That leads to more traffic, and if you play your cards right, more business for you, and when I say these are my favorite strategies, I mean these are the ones that I'd actually not really mind doing myself, and ones that I and other SEO experts out there are seeing to be working very well right now as we're, in early 2021. So here we go. Let's start out with some really easy ones, and we'll get to a few harder tactics later that really are still worth trying because the links you can get there tend to be even more powerful. And you definitely want to stay till the end because I'm saving my #1 favorite link building strategy for last. Trust me, it's worth it. Okay, so our first strategy is super easy, and that's just using Google Stories as link bait. Now, I did a whole video all about Google Stories, which basically just involves a really simple WordPress plugin put out by Google themselves, which lets you create embeddable stories, right? With multiple slides, images, text areas, and even links right inside of them. So these are still super underused right now. And the way I see them at this point is almost like an updated version of the infographics that were super trendy, about 10 years ago. So what I used to do was create an infographic, usually something along the lines of the top 10 web design trends of that particular year. I'd make it look really pretty, really nice, and then shop it around to all the design blogs. Basically saying, hey, you can post this on your blog and I'll write up a short, unique text post to introduce it for you. All I would ask for is a link back to my site inside the author bio. And infographics are not the draw they used to be, but a well-done Google story that can be embedded with a link back to your site right inside of it can also be shopped around to relevant blogs in your niche. You just want to email them the same way that I did about the infographic and then offer up a unique introduction to each one. And when I say unique, I mean you'd write it in a different way for every single blog that accepts it. So they're all, unique to each other. And then for more on Google Stories and how to create one step by step, I'm going to put the link to that video in the description below. And while we're on the subject about reaching out to blogs, let's talk about guest blogging. Now, this is just when you contact any blog out there and you say, hey, I want to write an article for you, and you guessed it, you get a link back to your site in the bio section. So the problem with that is it's harder than it used to be just because blog owners are bombarded, trust me, by these requests, usually from people who haven't done their homework on the blog itself, and also from people who are just obviously content farmers, right? Who want to produce mass quantities of blog posts just for the link with little to no regard for quality research and writing. So rather than just offering a guest post on a topic that you have no idea if they'll be interested in it or not, why not instead offer to update a post they already have that probably used to get a lot of traction, or maybe one that still does get traction, but the information in it's out of date. So this happens all the time just because of how quickly everything changes. So what was good advice back in 2015 might not apply anymore. So if you found an old out-of-date article that you could either rewrite completely to be relevant again, Or if it doesn't really need that, maybe it just needs a light updating of it where it needs it, pitch that to the blog owner. Because obviously it's a topic that they thought was worth publishing then, and it's probably getting some traction now, so it's a no-brainer. But if you're planning on doing that light rewrite, let them know that that's your vision, and let them know that why you think it doesn't really need much more than that. Then write it for them and just ask for a simple co-author credit in the existing bio alongside the OG author. And next up, okay, I love this one because it really is easy and it involves simply helping a reporter out. So, when you read an article where it features a quote from someone, an expert on the topic of the article, well, that expert can be you, right? And this is way easier than you think. All you need to do is go to a website called helpareporter.com and then sign up as a source, and it's absolutely for free. So you'll then get daily emails that are going to let you know who's looking to feature someone like you in their story. You're just going to need to respond quickly in most cases to be considered because a lot of people are probably responding. And honestly, you're not going to win them all, but you can get some really great links and mentions this way on some pretty reputable websites. Personally, I've actually gotten featured on the New York Times website that way. I mean, just imagine how much a link from the New York Times would be worth for your website. But anyway, next you can go after any unlinked mentions of you or your brand and just simply request that a link be inserted there. Now, this is definitely going to work better if you actually have some mentions online. So this won't be great for you startups or really small businesses out there, but all you want to do is just do a search for your business name, and every time you see it listed, any page it comes up on, but there's no link on it, just manually reach out via email or even on social media, possibly, and just politely request that it be linked and that you'd really appreciate it, right? It definitely helps to be nice when making these requests. Okay, so now we've got a few strategies that are a little more involved, slightly more difficult to pull off, but stay with me here. These are definitely worth talking about because I'm betting at least one of these could get you thinking that it is actually a great fit for you and your business. So here we go. All right, a great way to get a lot of links at scale is to do something or create something that's actually newsworthy and then put it out to the world in a press release. So there are definitely a few ways you can think about this. First of all, ask yourself, are you doing something differently than it's usually done, or could you do something in a different way? So just to help illustrate this, an example, I had a client who was a wedding band leader here in Chicago who actually did something pretty cool. He worked with a local charity and he'd work it out with some of his couples. He'd bring it up to them, and those that would agree, he would actually have all of their floral centerpieces from the wedding donated to this charity that would then repurpose all those arrangements for sick patients who were in the hospital who didn't have anyone visiting them or bringing them any flowers or anything at all. And that's exactly the kind of human interest story that could really get some traction with local news outlets for sure, especially if it happens to be a slower news day. So if he were to create a press release about that and then get those news sources to pick it up, which, by the way, you can do this online. You can make these press releases online for really cheap, actually. He could have gotten some great links out of that. Or the other way to think about this would be to do a study in your niche or conduct a poll or any kind of research that could result in a statistic or a really helpful piece of info that other sources could pick up on and cite in their own articles. Like, I cannot tell you how many blog posts talk about the statistic about how for every dollar you spend on email marketing, you're likely to get $44 back. I've talked about that. And somebody had to come up with that number through research, right? And while they probably don't get credited with it anymore, it's been around for a while, when it was a newer statistic, they probably did get credit for it a lot. Probably with a nice little link that said, in a study conducted by emailmarketingcompanyx.com. So get yourself a boatload of links like that. Okay, so next, again, not for everyone, but if your industry has any awards that you can enter to win and you think you've got a good shot, you can absolutely get some really solid links that way. Now, you're obviously not guaranteed to win, and some of these awards actually cost real money to enter, so that's going to be completely up to you if you think it's worth risking. All right, now we've come to what I promised you, my number one favorite link building strategy for 2021, and that is appearing as a guest on podcasts. So I love this for several reasons. First of all, you can almost always ask for and receive a link back to your website in the show notes. And secondly, and this isn't even really necessarily SEO related, but in my opinion, there's no more powerful way of putting yourself out there as a true expert without having to create your own podcast or YouTube channel. So again, you just want to reach out to those hosts of the shows in your niche manually and just let them know you listen, you're a fan, and then give them, this is the important part, give them 3 solid topics, or think of them as episode titles that you could come on and cover as a guest on the show, and why that would benefit their listeners, right? And there are also free websites you can sign up with that are going to connect you with podcasters who need guests. But just so you know, those are generally going to be newer, lesser known shows. But I think that's okay. I highly recommend starting there anyway, right? You want to practice your topics and your messaging on the smaller shows first. Build up your speaking skills and your confidence. And then I want you to pitch yourself to some of the bigger players out there for some even more powerful links. So just so you know, backlinks are only one part of Google rankings, but I've got you covered with the rest. So I want you to click right here to get your hands on my free Ultimate Google Ranking Kickstart Kit for service businesses. It's got everything you need, including an optimized page blueprint, a Google My Business success checklist, and more. So click right over here to download the kit, and we can get you set up real fast.